plan to eradicate world poverty. And it was to take his model from Bangladesh and spread it globally. Well, he could have laughed at that. Maybe he did laugh at it. But then he saw that maybe I could make a difference. 21 years old and with very little life experience. And he wrote me back and he said, come on, join me when you finish your studies. We'll try it. Maybe you have a good idea there, at least the essence of a good idea. I was so thrilled. I said at that point, I'm dedicating my life to championing this man's work on the global stage as best as I can, whatever my God-given abilities. I wasn't the best student. I was pretty bad at languages. But my studies, I improved. I learned the fundamentals of Bengali, the language they spoke there. And I went to Bangladesh and lived there for most of the first decade of my professional life. Saw amazing things. And this, again, the stories of those are in my book. And I won't go into those. But the second 10 years of my career, we've been running something called Grameen Foundation, which, based on the rough translation I got of my introduction, was started with $6,000, which I know now is not a lot of money to start an organization with. I didn't know that then, which was good, because I might not have tried. But since then, we've raised more than $250 million to expand microfinance globally, based on that $6,000 of seed capital. And we've done a lot of other things. But that's $250 million based on a tiny seed. But that's what's possible if someone is passionate about an idea. And again, my idea was to champion someone else's idea, microfinance. There's another man, just to give you a little sense of what's possible, a musician named Sam Daly Harris, a friend of mine, was so frustrated that the governments of the world were not setting a goal for expanding microfinance globally. So he wanted them to do it in various conferences they had at the UN. Well, they never did that, so he held his own conference. He said, forget about the governments, I'll do this. Civil society, let's come together. Let's set a goal to take microfinance outreach from 10 million to 100 million in 10 years. And the government said, we're not interested. But then he prepared and held preparatory conferences like the UN does. Ultimately, 3,000 people came together in 1997. And they said, we're going to reach 100 million of the world's poorest families with microfinance. Do what we've done in Bangladesh globally. And actually, a lot of those people went out and back to their countries and their societies and tried to do their part to make that happen. He put a follow-up program together, which cost $10 million, which is nothing. $1 million a year for 10 years to track progress. He had no money to actually give anyone the resources to do microfinance. And yet he energized a global community to take a solution to a big scale. Well, at the end of 2006, the goal was 2005. At the end of 2006, two very important things happened. Number one, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Muhammad Yunus because his strategy had now become a global phenomenon, supported by millions of people, with Sam and I playing our small roles. And I'll tell you one thing, I was privileged to go to the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, which is an amazing thing. And I'll tell you one thing, it was beautiful, it was well done, and the Norwegians, they really know how to party. They really know how to party. Party with a purpose, with peace as the objective. But it was so much fun. So, and a few weeks later, we gathered in Halifax, Nova Scotia, to declare that the goal of reaching 100 million of the world's families was going to be reached by the end of 2006, 1 year late, but a massive undertaking for 10 years with very little in the way of resources. Again, one man wanted to champion an idea at a global scale. It worked. Is microfinance perfect? No, it's far from it. All sorts of ways I'm dissatisfied with it, in Bangladesh and elsewhere. This is why we need a new generation of social entrepreneurs to build on what we've started with microfinance, which is very incomplete. But there is something possible, and I'll conclude with this thought, that microfinance had to create a field presence in many, many of the poor communities in the world. 3,000 organizations now provide microfinance, big and small, and they touch 750 million families, people, 150 million families. Do business with them on a weekly basis. Know what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. And so we've stitched together this network, unprecedented in human history, of disadvantaged, normal people, or really people even below normal, economically speaking, but rising up slowly. And this is the best network that's ever existed for diffusing social innovations to the marginalized people of the world. Because again, we're present in these organizations are present in their communities, do business with them on a weekly basis. And just to take one example of that, which is exciting, you know that there's a big global warming problem. One of the things we have to deal with global warming is that we need to convert the people who are not consuming much to consuming more, but doing it in a clean way. Well, Grameen Bank created a sister company called Grameen Shakti, which means Grameen Energy in Bengali. And they started saying, well, we're going to use existing solar technologies and we're going to provide them to the poor, finance them to do it and have solar home systems. So they start, their first electricity ever in their home is solar. They never go any other direction. People said it was not very practical to do this. The technology was very expensive. But they tried, and Professor Yunus said to me, if we ever get to the point, Alex, because by this point I was running Grameen Foundation in the USA. We have an office here in Hong Kong, by the way, which is opened just last year. But he said, if we ever get to the point where we're selling 100 solar home systems, this is done in a business-like way. It's not a gift, it's not a grant of a solar home system. $400 is the most typical unit. If we ever get to the point where we're doing more than 100 in a month, we're going to have a big celebration, Alex, because that will be a huge achievement to do it at the whole household level. Well, a few years ago, he came to our board meeting. He said, actually, we had our first month where we just did more than 3,000 solar home systems installed in rural Bangladesh in a single month. A few months later, he said, we just did 5,000 in a month. A few months after that, we learned that they passed 100,000 solar home systems installed throughout rural Bangladesh, surpassing the biggest program in the world previously. They were doing it profitably in a business-like way, but it's a nonprofit organization that does it. Interesting. Now, today, as I went there last month, they've done 300,000 installations, 15,000 per month, doing it profitably, and are roughly 3 times bigger than the second program, most successful program, bringing solar energy to the household level in the developing world. And they had no technological breakthrough or innovation here. It was all about using the microfinance infrastructure, the trust that had been developed with the households over decades, and doing it on a business-like way, and then doing it faster than anyone had done before. So this is what's possible through this network. This is why I titled my talk, Microfinance as a Platform, because it is a platform. It is a network of poor people, and formerly poor people, increasingly, who are raising themselves up, but also they're more ready than they've ever been before to adapt and to use and to improve on the social innovations that others will develop, including, hopefully, many of you. Thank you very much.